there was a particular time, this is early on in my world building, I had the only canon starship bridge I ever did was one that's the Enterprise D bridge, and it hasn't been updated in forever. And I had a friend of mine who was, just discovering that I do Trek worlds, and he was on the bridge and checking it out, and I could tell he was getting kind of teary-eyed and emotional. I'm like, are you okay?
Welcome to the Metaverse Degen. I'm Lion.
I'm Old Man Raptor, and folks, we've got one hell of a guest, and that is...
I'm Captain Ren.
Nice to meet you, Captain Ren. It's a pleasure to have you. I remember back when we first met you during the when you got to meet the fleet, GCP, Galaxy Fleet Command. Oh,
yeah. The wild card for Galaxy Fleet Command is one of now 50 separate starship themed worlds that I've built.
Oh wow,
50? Holy shit! Yeah, I want that one, Mom. It looks prettier than that one. There's 50 of them. Can I have that one figurine? Yeah, that's what it sounds like, don't it?
Yeah. On a funny note, when I'm hand camming this, you definitely see your normal size, and it's kind of funny.
Thanks. Yeah, boy.
Either way, let's start with the main question we ask: what are you most known for? How did you get started? And what got you into VRChat?
Well, I would say I'm most known for my Star Trek themed worlds. What got me started is I had been in VRChat maybe about a year. We had some drama in our friend group, and I was considering starting world building anyway. I was looking into messing around with prefabs because I wanted to have some place that our friends could hang out, leave your drama at the door. Everybody's welcome at Ren's place, so to speak, that kind of a vibe. And I started out with the lake house prefab, suburban lake house from Spooky Ghost Boo, I think was the creator. And we kind of customized it, made it our own, Ren's lake house, and then I had since redone like a more optimized version of it, updated it. And that's where we got started. And then I figured, I want to try my hand at making my own thing, like building worlds from scratch. Started out with Pro Builder. Took the advice of some friends that, Pro Builder's kind of you really want to get into Blender to actually, properly build stuff. So that's what I ended up doing. Bit of a learning curve with Blender, but, the results speak for themselves. So after I built my first from scratch world, it's Ren's super secret bunker, right? It's sort of like an underground basement kind of vibe. After that, I decided to try my hand at Star Trek worlds, and I found that is definitely my sweet spot as far as design style and expertise as far as world building. And VRChat, where I got started, was late summer of 2020. I was in the same situation a lot of us were, going through COVID, not being able to socialize with people, work, home, work, home, work, home. I'm bored out of my mind. What am I going to do? And so I happened to come across Shiba videos on YouTube, and I found out they were on a platform called VRChat. I figured I'd give that a try. And in the last 4.5 years, I've met more awesome friends than I thought I'd know in a lifetime. So it's been a journey of self-discovery and friendship and building things for myself and for others.
Oh, wow. So from when you started, it seemed like you got into quite a lot of various things, especially with the GFC Galaxy Fleet Command. How did you get involved with them and start making Starfleet ships for roleplay? Ships. I can English.
Yeah, you got good tongue there, sonny boy.
So it was earlier on in my my Starship world building where I met Delandian, and he was just coming over from Second Life and was curious if there was any Star Trek presence in VRChat. And as luck would have it, some super nerd, I'm not sure who, had been building a handful of Starship worlds. And I want to say I had maybe 4 or 5 ships built at the time. I mean, when I started with the Fantasia, my ship, Starship Number 1, back in the day, I figured I'm going to maybe build 10, a dozen of these at most for myself, friends, a couple of different Starship styles, that kind of thing. I would not have imagined that friend projects, gift projects, commission projects would turn into 50+ starships. So it's been really fun. But as far as Delandian and Galaxy Fleet Command are concerned, when I met him, I was like, I'm trying to build a star base, so to speak, like a hub world of just general Trek kind of vibes to kind of like, here's some portals to my stuff, here's some portals to stuff other people have made, and kind of a general Star Trek hub world. And that eventually graduated into, I decided to build a starship for him, a Prometheus class themed build, USS Wildcard. And I figured it would be a great way, like if he's going to be bringing people in from Second Life or getting Star Trek people together here in VRChat, he's going to need a base of operations to do that from. So that's why I built the Wildcard, which was completely free gift project because I knew he would really enjoy it, and I knew there was going to be a community of sorts to come together. And I'm really pleased to see how Galaxy Fleet Command has grown into a huge thing, and I've done a handful of ships for them so far, and it's worked out quite well because like Ren builds the ships and GFC brings the people together, so it seems to work.
Oh wow! So I will ask this one question: how much has the your Star Trek ships changed over the time from when you started the beginning to now? How much has the build quality changed, may I ask? And what kinds of things did you try?
Oh my God, leaps and bounds. Like, excuse me. When I first started out, I was using Unity's built-in lighting engine to render the lighting in the world and stuff. And people have always told me, like, Ran, you got to use Bakery. It's so much better. And I'm like, yeah, but it's $50. Like, I don't want to spend money on something. You know what I mean? But eventually I was convinced to try Bakery, and I have definitely not looked back since. Because, I mean, you're using Unity's lighting engine, and there's only so nice it can look. Plus, it's based on using your CPU to render the lighting, so it takes forever, right? Whereas Bakery uses your GPU, which is great at rendering graphics. So it takes much, much less time. It's more efficient, and the results are much, much cleaner and nicer. So Bakery is optimal. The only downside with Bakery is if you're on an AMD graphics card, it doesn't support Bakery for whatever reason. But definitely fantastic. I mean, as far as build quality, I can show you one of my older builds at some point, and it's gone from piecing a bunch of stuff together to make a scene, and I had started out using a couple of model rips from like SketchUp and stuff, and quickly learned like if you're going to build stuff, make your own models. That way you're not getting somebody else's problem, so to speak, because like SketchUp is a weird modeling program, so like it'll make you a three-dimensional shape, but it's not necessarily concerned with the geometry. So if your geometry of it is insane, when you go to render light on it, it's going to look absolutely terrible. So
oh, wow.
Yeah, 90% of the stuff I build with is my own stuff, with the exception of like maybe like a couch model here I've purchased from a modeling website, or the captain's chairs that I use in most of my builds I got from, I want to say it was a Render Hub, and those started out at 325,000 polygons a piece, so a little on the heavy side. When I got those, a friend of mine with better blender skills than myself went through them and was able to bring them down to I think about 15,000, which is great. They still look fantastic, and I would rather be able to put them in a world and not have a million polygons just in the captain's chairs.
Oh, but yeah. That's seems like more polygons than the average Black Cat E-boy, to be honest.
Oh yeah. And then as far as little details that I try to keep in mind for optimization is like, if it doesn't have to be a complex texture, don't make it a complex texture. Like, say for example, like the trim here has wood grain on it, so that is, your texture albedo and your normal map and sometimes a metallic map, whereas the walls, like this piece here, is all just a single basic color, which takes up a lot less texture memory. So save texture memory where you can, and oftentimes in Star Trek themed building, the scene itself brings it to life, so it doesn't have to be complicated textures, except where it's necessary, like carpet, wood grain, certain materials, your computer panels, and so on. But one thing I really got into doing that I enjoy with Star Trek themed worlds is a transporter room works really well for a spawn point. So 95% of your worlds you have in VRChat have your spawn point at one spot. So say you got a big group of friends joining. Bam, 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 bam. Everybody's clustered right on top of each other when you join in. You can do multiple spawn points in Unity, though. So there are 6 individual spawn points here on the transporter, so that each one of those pads as a spawn location, so that way everybody's not on top of each other when they join in the world.
That's actually pretty genius.
Yeah, that's great.
And then I also incorporate over here where it says show players. And this is a prefab you can get off, I believe it's Gumroad. And I'd seen this in a handful of worlds, and I decided to incorporate this in all of my worlds simply because how many times have you joined in a large world and you're like, I don't know where my friends are, I can't find anybody, like, where's everybody at, you know what I mean? And it's handy, especially in something that might be maybe a confusing layout like a Star Trek world, to, you don't have to look around, just jump to your friends and click the teleport, and there you go.
And it does make sense in canon Star Trek. You can easily just use a teleport and blip-flop wherever you want.
Yeah, it's the site-to-site transport.
Okay. So I'll ask this question then. How to scale are the Star Trek ships? Like, do you try to make it so it's a one-to-one like the show, or are they their own thing?
So, as far as I can figure, my builds are about, if actual scale is 100%, this is about 120 to 125%. Reason being is because when I had started world building, the average size avatar was like the Rex, for example, so that's about 7-8 feet tall. And at the time, I was smaller. I want to say my avatar was like 6 foot tall, but I was getting into a larger size avatar because that was more common with everybody that day, and I figured, be on the same scale, so to speak. So my original method of figuring out, I need to have a predetermined scale, like a set scale for everything, so it feels like every world is consistent. What I originally did is I brought my avatar into the world scene, scaled it to the size I normally use in VR, and kind of stuck it in a door frame, and then scaled the door frame to where it felt right with the avatar. The method I used is Jonathan Frakes from The Next Generation.
Yep.
He's a tall guy. I want to say he's like 6'3", 6'4", something like that. So basically what I did is I tried to scale the door frame and the avatar to, okay, say my avatar is Jonathan Frakes on the tall side, right? About how much space is between the top of his head and the underside of the door frame, and I tried to scale it around that scale. So I use what I call the Frakes scale to scale stuff from, and I've kept a consistent scale with that since then. And every now and then I'll have to, do stuff manually, like say I'm doing a new console and I can't quite eyeball it in Unity. So a lot of times I'll bring in the avatar and figure like, okay, well, where's about waist height so this feels right whenever I'm building, right? Because you want it to feel right.
Okay. So now...
And,
sorry, you continue.
No, go ahead. You're fine.
Oh, I was going to ask now, is this like a close carbon copy to what you would see in the show? Like even down to the teleporter rooms here and the other ones on the ship?
No, I like to do something that feels like Star Trek, but as much as possible make it its own original things. Like the various starship styles that the various builds I've done are inspired by are technically like canon Star Trek ships, but a lot of the design, the layout of the stuff in here is mostly my own creation, or if somebody wants something specific, tailored to that. For example, the what I call the residential corridor outside the door here is basically intended for, you've got your transporter room sits off one side of the hall. Well, we can go out here, I'll show you.
Okay.
So you want to have a halfway central spawn point. So you got your transporter room here. This leads into your residential corridor. And then over here, we have the turbolift, which allows you to access all the other areas of the ship. So kind of a centralized spawn point. And the captain's quarters is here in the middle. And most Star Trek series, the captain's quarters has always had like a decorative painting or some sort of a door inset, make it feel different than the rest of the ship. But the residential corridors, how I design them, it's more or less a large bow shape. There is an end eventually on either side, but it's a large bow shape so that you can have the captain's quarters here in the middle, and then there are segmented areas where you can plug on like smaller crew quarters.
Yeah.
Say, for example, I'm doing a build for somebody, well, maybe they want like 2 or 3 small crew quarters for their friends or something like that. The corridor is designed to be able to add that on if necessary.
Oh, wow. So how with this floor particularly, how long does it take to like model and set up normally?
It depends on how much I have to build from scratch. Like, say I'm doing yet another Galaxy class, they're fairly common design people ask for. It depends. Like if they want the same kind of corridor style I use here, if they want the same kind of captain's quarters I use here, it's just a matter of grabbing the right models, throwing the light that I already have assembled in various Unity scenes, and putting together from pieces and assets that I already have constructed. If they want something original, it's a little more time consuming because then I got to build certain parts of it from scratch in Blender.
Okay.
But for the most part, the design style of the Star Trek universe lends itself well to modularity, because most Starfleet ships in Star Trek are going to be constructed in a modular manner, like a military starship. Like, okay, here's a Galaxy class, let's make 50 of them. They all have the same corridor. They mostly have the same interior design, so you can, just make a bazillion of the same part, and it works on all the various different types of ships. So the modular construction style works very well with Star Trek, and it also saves a little bit of time build-wise, too.
Oh, wow. Now, do you normally only make Federation ships, or do you make other style ships as well?
So far, I've only made Federation ships, but that also seems to be what people usually ask for, though, too. I had a guy ask me if I would be interested in doing a Orville-themed build at some point. Like, I told him, I've never done Orville, but it definitely has that 90s sci-fi kind of vibe that I've gotten good with. I'd like to try my hand at it. And I have found one of the best things to ask early on discussion-wise is, what is your budget, right? So this guy had approached me like he wanted to do the bridge and the captain's quarters and the medical ward and the engineering, and I was like, that's awesome. I'd love to try my hand at the Orville, something different, mix it up a little bit. And he said his budget was 50 Canadian, and I'm like, for real? Bro.
Cool.
I can give you a urinal for 50. No problem. I'm over here. I can give you the captain's bathroom. Yeah, captain's bathroom. That's what you're going to be sitting in. Hope you enjoy it. This is your shit.
Well, I mean, to be fair, even the captain's bathroom is loaded. I'll show you. The captain's quarters over here.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So this is very reminiscent of Star Trek The Next Generation. The Galaxy-class starships had these, really long, narrow windows, these kind of a triangle-shaped arch interior design kind of style, and the crew quarters were often segmented. So in the middle you would have your living/socializing area, then you might have the captain's office on one side and the sleeping area on the other. So most of the times my crew quarters are built with the same degree of separation of areas. The Fantasia here is a great example of just how customized I can do a build. You can do the base crew quarters and that's it, or you can do photos of your friends all over the place. You can add some custom touches, like I've got all the audio equipment going on here and lots of personal decoration. Really liven the space up, make it feel like your own, And as far as doing canon Star Trek ships, I usually don't do that kind of thing, because what I prefer to do is I want to do your ship. What's its name? What type of ship is it? What's the registry number? What's all the details and the backstory? What kind of color palette does it have? How is it decorated? I mean, anybody can render, an Enterprise D bridge or a Voyager bridge or whatnot, but I want to do something unique and special to share with people who are into Star Trek to enjoy their own special piece. I mean, it's one thing to find a world that's the bridge of the Enterprise D, but it's another thing entirely to stand on the bridge of your own starship. That's what I like to do.
Okay.
All I know is it's got one hell of a bathroom. You should see that bitch. It's got a big toilet.
Yeah, so speaking of the captain's bathroom being loaded, you've got
it looks like a
living
bidet
area over here. And then over here you have a dining area. This is kind of like an expansion room. You can do dining or a captain's office, or whatever you want to do with it. And anybody from the Midwest might recognize these, Casey's Pizza.
Yes, I got Casey's Pizza up here.
And then over here in the bathroom, we have the tub area. And like I was saying, with everybody being 7-8 feet tall, you need a little bit extra space. It's enormous size, but you know.
To me, it's a fucking swimming pool.
The bathroom, of course, comes fully loaded with the seashells package.
Oh wow!
It's
picture of
it's neat.
Picture of someone on the toilet.
That's my friend Serb. That's my friend Serb. He was talking about you need to have like one of those like motivational posters in your bathroom, Ren. You know, like where somebody's just like being all inspiring and whatnot. And I'm like, so he's sitting on the crapper when he's saying this, and I'm like, I'm just gonna take that picture of you being inspiring and just stick it over all of my toilets. It's gonna be hilarious. Get your thinking cap on, you know. So. Usually, like I tell people, you know, all of our starships come fully loaded with the seashells package, which is this over here. And it's usually a 50-50 shot whether they get the reference. But the 3 seashells are from Demolition Man. It's the bathroom of the future. Nobody knows how it actually works, you know, that kind of a thing. But I had seen a couple of Star Trek render concepts where people had made that sci-fi reference in the Star Trek bathroom. I'm like, you know what? I'm going to use that because some people are actually going to get that reference. It'll be funny.
Oh, wow. So a question I have based on some of the things you said earlier is how much does one of your builds cost normally for some of the ships?
So I charge $25 an hour for my time, not necessarily specifically for like a Star Trek themed commission, but just for my time to build whatever you want me to build, basically. And so it's $25 an hour. Usually, if I'm doing a Starship world, it'll usually be about 20 hours worth of work, depending on how much from scratch stuff is being done. And I'm told I should charge more than $25 an hour for my work, but at the same time, I don't want to scare people away either, because like somebody's asking to do a world build, and I'm like, oh yeah, like 1,500. That's going to be a little bit more likely to scare people away. So what I usually say is like, if you're having me do a from scratch build, figure $25 an hour, 20 hours work, figure at least, you know, a budget of $500. Now, if it's something that is pieces that I already have built, components that I already have built that I can more or less kit bash together into whatever type of ship they want, it can be less expensive. So a lot of times I'll have people who are like, well, I only got a budget of like 150. Well, here, let me throw you a bridge and a captain's quarters together real quick of whatever type of ship you want. We'll put a custom name and your own color palette on, you know, make it your own, but it'll be a smaller, simpler world based on their budget. Because like I usually tell people, like, my prices are negotiable depending on, you know, what your budget is, what you have in mind. Because, like, when it comes down to it, I enjoy doing what I do not for the money, but because I enjoy being able to share something I'm passionate about with others. And I really enjoy that not only can I build worlds to bring my friends together, but I can build worlds for others that they can bring their friends together in. And I really enjoy being able to share that. So for me personally, it's not about the money I make off of world building. It's about the sharing it with others.
Okay. So
unfortunately, doing nice things for people doesn't pay for pizza, but
no, sometimes it don't. So of all the builds you've made, what have been some of your favorites, may I ask, between all the different ships? Since you have 50 ships within the fleet.
Let's see, some of my favorites. Well, the Fantasia, of course, because it's my own personal ship. It's had a lot of updates, tweaks, polish over the years. And since it's kind of become the flagship, so to speak, of a fleet of Starship worlds, I try to keep it up to date as nice as possible. Like, if ever I come up with like a particular new building tweak or design style, I try to incorporate into this if I can to, you know, put the best foot forward, so to speak. As far as favorite ships, though, I would say one of mine is probably the Dragonfly. That's one I did for my friend James way back in the day that's had a handful of updates. Another one would be the Sequoia, which is another Galaxy-class themed build. I did that one for my friend Basil. And here recently, I did my first Defiant-class Starship build. That's the small battleship from Deep Space Nine. I'd never done a Defiant before. And somebody commissioned me to do a Defiant-themed build. And it was fun because I wanted it to feel like, you know, Star Trek from that era, but also be its own unique thing as well. So that was a fun build, and I definitely enjoy the way it came out because 95% of that was completely from scratch. I'm not reusing corridors I've done so far. I had to do all new doors, all new door frame styles, all new corridors, designed a brand new bridge, brand new engineering room, because for the most part, doors in Star Trek sets are, your door frame with a rounded top, right? And then it has the two doors that, slide apart pneumatically. Whereas Defiant is more of a, what do you would call it? It's more like a bulkhead kind of thing, where it's actually got like a lip at the bottom, and it's got a whole framework, and it has a more like militaristic style looking door. So I had to design all new components to, have the look properly.
Okay, that's actually pretty awesome. So how long has the Fantasia you've been working on since you've been at it for a while?
I believe I would have to check the fleet list on the bridge, but I believe it's October of 2022.
Oh wow. Oh, so
I've had a degree of time to hone my skills.
Oh wow, so you made 50 Star Trek themed worlds in about 2 or 3 years now. That's actually quite impressive.
Oop. That's damn impressive.
I mean, especially considering most of them have not been commissions. It's just kind of like, I like to be paid for my time, but at the same time, I'm like, this seems like an awesome person. They don't really have a budget for a world build, but I know they would really enjoy and appreciate a starship of their own. So a lot of times I'll do something like a bridge and a captain's quarters, so to speak. That way they have, at least something. Because I enjoy being able to share this kind of thing.
Wow. Honestly, I've actually world hopped through some of your other ships earlier on a couple years back, and I didn't even know it was you who made them. I just walked in because I was in a nostalgia trip back because my dad and I would watch Star Trek when we were growing up. It's like I want to see if anyone's built ships, and honestly, they're all been very well made, I'll say.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll have to show you some of my older builds at some point. You can definitely see the transitional period, so to speak, from things being thrown together to like a properly polished and finished product.
So would you mind showing us some of the other rooms in this floor, may I ask? And yeah.
Yeah. Oh. So the only other thing on this area is the bedroom of the captain's quarters, because like I said, this is a residential corridor, so you've got your spawn room, you've got the captain's quarters, and you've got your turbolift access. The rest of the corridor is mostly empty, unless, of course, anybody wants to have, additional crew quarters thrown on.
Oh, wow. I see.
So over here you have the bedroom area.
This is where
lots more personal
happens.
photos, little decorations and whatnot. Maybe, allegedly.
Seriously, you had to go there with that?
I had to go with the MTV Cribs reference. I'm sorry.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean, furry's going to do furry things,
Yeah, especially with that detail over there.
So the captain's laptop, if you notice whenever we get to the bridge, on the captain's office, it has like Starfleet logos and stuff on the screen, whereas in the captain's bedroom, we just have E621 because, like, well, and then lots of little personal decorations and things like that. And the Fantasia is a really great example of, showing somebody just the amount of detail and personal touches I can put into a build if interested.
Wow. Well, I'll say the bedroom's the world, even the bedroom's very well put together. I'll say with all the random pictures and the details, you can definitely tell the amount of love you've put into the build.
Yeah, it's like I tell people when I tell them like I've built 50 freaking starships, and they're like, "Oh my god, for real?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I either have a passion or autism, one of the
two." He's got an itch that he can't get rid of, and going, "God, I need my fixing. I need to build another one."
Just got to build another one, man. I got a twitch going,
Yeah. I need my fix, boss. Can I get another one on my cue card? It's like getting a stamp.
So if you guys follow me to the turbolift, I will show you the bridge.
Okay.
So you want to make it feel as much like a in-universe Star Trek ship as possible. So to get to different areas of your ship, you've got a computer panel here and your turbolift to get to the different areas. So if you follow me to deck 1.
Okay. Cool.
So in Star Trek terminology, this is the main bridge. This is the command center of the starship, where all the magic happens, so to speak. So you've got your various different computer monitors for various different functions. Back here at the rear of the bridge, you have your master systems display. Usually your big LCARS panels like this are usually sampled from somewhere online, and then I'll go into Photoshop and change the color palette so that matches the rest of the ship, put in the appropriate name and registry number, things like that. My friend Shadow actually went and did a lot of these LCARs and tinted them all to a blue color. He's been my partner in crime in various LCARs and model references, things like that.
Oh, wow. I will say the amount of detail in a lot of these screens is crazy, between the animations that go in between all of the screens. Honestly, it's very impressive, I'll say.
And I can't take credit for the actual animated screens, because if you'll notice, every screen is exactly the same. The reason for that is that's actually a secondary video player that's playing from a YouTube video. There's a guy on YouTube who does Star Trek and other sci-fi computer panel animations, and this is a video of his that's an 8-hour loop of all of his 90s Star Trek LCARS animations. So I can use the secondary video player and play that in the background. It gives you the look that there's actual computer stuff going on, and it saves a little time that I don't have to animate it myself. But it gives it a nice interactive kind of look to it.
So with the bridge, how many iterations of this bridge have there been, and what kind of changes have happened over the iteration of the different variants of ships you've made and worked on?
Well, the Fantasia, I've recently updated the wall consoles. So the consoles over here, these consoles here. I had used the same model since practically day one. It had more of a Star Trek Voyager kind of look. And recently, Starship number 50, it's been a case of pulling out all the stops and really fine-tuning all the little details, because, it's special. And I realized I liked the consoles I did on that one so well, I decided to incorporate them into the flagship because they look fantastic. As far as design iterations, there's been several different design iterations of just the Galaxy class style bridge alone, and I recently redid the floor as well. For example, one that people commonly ask for is the Star Trek Generations layout. So where you've got, it's the Star Trek The Next Generation set, but then it has steps added in the command area to give it sort of a raised up, presence in the room. And then it also has little weird side steps off to the side because they added in additional consoles. So these side consoles here were not present in the Next Generation series. They added them in for the Next Generation movie to give it, a more full realized bridge kind of look to it. But the downside, the way they put that set together, is it's still the Next Generation ramp floor with just extra steps and stuff tacked onto it. It felt very clumsy and trip hazard and that kind of thing. So if you follow me over here, the floor on this bridge is completely of my own design, because I wanted to have the side consoles like in the movie to give it a more full feel to the bridge, but a floor that properly incorporates that without being a huge tripping hazard. So it's just one complete floor to where you still have the command chairs and the roll bar being your center focal point of the room, but also has adequate space for adding consoles and stations to the side, and you have just nice organized steps rather than having a bunch of steps and ramps all tacked on top of each other in a sloppy set.
Oh, wow. So when deciding, for example, the Fantasia, why did you choose this style of bridge initially?
So this particular style of bridge is for the Galaxy class starships. I grew up watching 90s Trek. I always loved Next Generation. It's my favorite of those 90s Star Trek series. So I've known for a while that if I were to, have my own ship, it would be a Galaxy class. So this is a Galaxy class bridge. but I've definitely put my own spin on it, again, as far as making it unique and making it my own.
Oh, wow. Whoa.
And whenever I do a starship for somebody, be it a Galaxy class or a Freedom class or, a whatever, the dedication plaque is the level of nerd detail I go to on all of this. So if you look at the dedication plaque, we've got the name of the starship, the registry number, the personal quote, the star date it was launched, the details as far as where it was manufactured, all that stuff. And I like discussing and brainstorming that with everybody I do a build for, because it helps it feel more real. It makes the ship uniquely its own.
Oh, wow. So how many variants of this plaque have you gone through? Has it been just this specific style, or did you kind of do a couple different versions?
So originally, when I started doing dedications plaques, it was just a flat square with some text on it. And then as I got to learn, more about what I'm doing in Blender, I added, like the little frame around the side with the little rivets to make it look like an actual metal plaque. A lot of times in Star Trek, there's like a decorative wooden frame, so I built a frame for this. And then I also have the different style comm badges. Depending on like when in the Star Trek timeline it is, this little symbol might be different. So I've got a prefab I put together that's the base plaque that you can throw, whatever texture you want on there. And then it has the various different comm badges depending on what era the starship is supposed to, belong to.
Okay. It's actually pretty awesome, especially little details like this. Sometimes, either worlds or even anything, sometimes the small details are the ones that matter the most to people. Especially, it shows the amount of attention has been placed there.
Oh, you thought you were here for e-girls? You thought f***ing wrong. You're here for Hash Studios. Think of tools that break more than they work. Or needing a computer science degree just to make an image show up in Unity? Worry no more. At Hash Studios, we have prefabs for everything you need. Megaphones for those world-shaking announcements, pop-up menus to keep out the less fashionable avatars from your club, and a band menu that lets you handle any unwanted guests. Hash Studios prefabs, available now on Gumroad, Booth, Jinxie, and Payhip. Get yours, or live with regret. Ooh, I hate that. I actually want to die.
Yeah, and that's the thing with like a Trek-themed world especially, is a lot of times it is those little details that not everybody pays attention to, but if it's absent, you're going to notice it if you're a fan. So a lot of times it's those little details that come together to make what feels like a proper scene.
Okay. So how long does it take you to make a bridge like this one, may I ask? And between modeling, shaders, and
well, I mean, to retexture from what I have is, probably maybe 2 or 3 hours to figure out a color palette for somebody, or customize, might be a little bit longer. As far as an exact time figure, I'm not really sure, because most of the bridges I have already built, and I've never really kept track of like how much time it takes. I get into it and I build it, there you go. But there are several bridges I've built that are like from scratch, my own design, like inspired by Star Trek, but not particularly a canon design, so to speak.
Okay.
Like I've got a bridge I did for the Nova class that I also use for the Norway class and some other like mid-size ships. That's completely my own design, inspired by Star Trek, but it's my own design. And the same thing with the Fantasia. The only thing that you're actually going to see in like a canon version of the Galaxy class is these curved walls. The ceiling's going to be similar. Your view screen and your helm consoles are going to be similar in the roll bar. But the side consoles on the walls, the floor, the railing, the chair design, the choice of, color palette, light fixtures, that's all original stuff I've either come up with on my own or other people have inspired and that kind of thing. For example, in the Next Generation television series, the skylight here in the middle is much smaller, and I decided like I want to make that bigger, make it feel inviting to view space outside. And another difference is the ceiling like this in Next Generation, instead of these ribbed areas being glass, it's actually just like bright white backlit stage lighting. So it makes it feel more enclosing. It makes it feel brighter because you've got all that white light going on. But the bridge on a starship is at the top of the ship, so why not make the ceiling glass and you get a proper view of space outside?
Okay. So what are some of these... sorry, you first, before I go off on a tangent.
Oh, you're fine. Go ahead. I had a tangent of my own. So.
Go on the tangent.
So, the conference room, which is usually either directly off the bridge or nearby the bridge, is where you would host, like, diplomatic conferences or events or, senior staff meetings, things like that. Every single conference room on my starships is intentionally misspelt. So if you notice, it says conference room on the door label.
Ah, yes.
The reason for that is it's a reference to the first furry convention.
Oh, that's interesting. Why'd you choose to spell it that way to reference that?
Well, I'm friends with Changa Husky, and I knew Silas Sable, who got the first furry convention's conference started, so I figured it would be a good reference to furry history to have that little nod somewhere on the starship.
Oh, wow.
And since Next Generation, the sticker on the door just says conference room, there you go. We'll just throw in that furry misspelling, ta-da.
I don't blame you.
Not at all.
So the conference room has the meeting table, some general space pictures to decorate with, and then also has the fleet list.
Oh.
So this is the fleet list here. It's almost up to date. 50 is not on there yet. I gotta update that, but every single one of these names is an explorable starship-themed VRChat world.
Oh, wow. There's quite a lot here when you have it in a list like that.
Yeah, there's maybe only a third of the worlds I've built are actually on my user account. Most of them are on other people's user accounts, people who've commissioned me, things like that. Because I figured around starship number 20, I was like, I need to keep track of this. So you got the starship name, registry number, type of starship, the captain, person I've done it for, the date I finished it, and then the number of production orders, so to speak.
I bet trying to keep all these worlds up to date is a pain.
There was a time I tried, but it's like... so it's like I tell people, like, especially the ones that I've done like a gift project for that's maybe a little bit out of date, one of my older builds. It's like, say, hey, Ren, like, when you're going to update my ship for, like, the video player and whatnot, and I'm like, I like money.
Yeah, there it is.
I mean, give me like a tip or something, because otherwise I've got, newer stuff I'm working on and things like that. And yeah, keeping every little thing up to date is a monumental task. So I like, buy me some pizza or something. You know what I mean? I need an incentive to work on that one specifically.
Well,
especially when VRChat keeps changing crap. I mean, seriously, like the video players, if you've ever been in a world and the video player's screen is flickering, it's because a couple of SDK updates back, VRChat changed the way that a video image is rendered on a mesh, and a lot of the video players had issues with it and it caused flickering, but that's been kind of a pain to keep updated too, because like every now and then it keeps flickering again. I'm like, make it stop.
I don't blame you for having that style of trying to update, because even looking at this list over here, I'll show you folks, see, this looks like a lot of work to try and keep up to date with each new SDK iteration.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Oh, well, I will say the conference room looks very, very reminiscent of this of some of them in the series.
The another thing I should point out, this painting over here on the conference room wall, this is by a guy who goes by JetFreak7 on DeviantArt. If you're ever interested, I can send you a link to his DeviantArt gallery. It's fantastic stuff. So he does starship paintings that, from what I understand, is rendered in Blender, and then he'll go into Photoshop and make it look like an actual like painting of the scene. And this is a commission I got with my friend Basil. We've got 3 separate ones. We've got this one of our 2 ships together, the Sequoia on the left and the Fantasia on the right. And then we both have individual ones as well with our ships by themselves.
Oh, wow. That's a very, very well done painting. It looks very beautiful. It looks almost like a picture. Oh, wow. Oh. One more time for you folks to see. Oh. And is this logo in every single one of your ships as well? The Starfleet Command United?
For the majority, yeah. So these are present in the conference room and also in the transporter room. So, of course, you're going to have Starfleet, because it's Starfleet ship. And then the other one over here is usually fleet recognition, so to speak. So, for example, my VR group, Ren's VRFers, this is our logo. And I've also got one for Galaxy Fleet Command. There's another one for Star Trek VRC. The Sleeping Knights have their own logo because they recently did a ship. And it's just kind of a case of, like, if you have an individual group you would like to have recognized or represented for your particular ship, let me know, so that way we can do like a fleet logo, so to speak, to recognize the different individual groups that some of the Starship worlds represent.
Oh, wow. Okay. That's a really nice detail, by the way. You're willing to put the little fleet recognition into a world as well as all of these.
Another detail that not everybody notices is you can actually see the ship outside the window.
Oh. That is pretty awesome. I love that detail, especially in a lot of VRChat worlds, no offense. You usually don't see outside the room that you're in, but being able to, like, look out the window and see the ship that you're in, honestly, is a really nice touch.
Yeah. Like 90s Trek didn't have that. Like, you look out the window and it's just a star field, but like, if you know where it is on the ship, you know there should be an exterior out there. So it's nice to add that little touch of realism to it. I mean, back in the 90s, that's expensive green screen work, but today it's just, just stick it out there, ta-da, there you go.
Oh, so when planning rooms and doing this touch here with the windows and stuff, how much planning does it take in order for, like, the different decks and stuff for the ship to plan, like, what is seen outside?
It's interesting that you ask that, because I always have to keep the fourth wall in mind when I'm doing a build. Like, where am I going to lay out the different rooms and the corridors attached to them in the scene so that you can't see it anywhere else from any of the windows that you might be looking at, so it doesn't break the illusion. So the nice thing about that is a lot of times all of my rooms are situated so that the windows all face outward from a central point in the scene, so that you can lay them out that way. And when you get to have a lot of different rooms and areas like this build, the best way to do that is to put them all underneath the bridge area. So when you're on the bridge, this exterior, saucer part of the starship gives you, 1, a realistic view, and 2, it hides everything else that's sitting directly below you.
So with this laid out, I know there are some ways worlds and stuff are set up where you would be like, there's the main room you're in, and then you would go to a different room by clicking on a door, you'd teleport somewhere else. But here you can walk flawlessly from room to room. How much foresight is put into that kind of thought process with the world, especially with, like, you being able to see what's out there?
So, like, as far as, like, different areas in the world, if you've got, like, say, for example, the bridge, well, you're going to have the captain's office and the conference room and the turbolifts are all going to be attached to the bridge, so that's going to have to sit in one space. And then, say, for example, the captain's quarters and corridor, that's going to have to sit in another space, and the corridor takes up an awful lot of room. So a bigger build like this, I have to be very mindful of how things are laid out, as not to break the illusion, but it also would be, kind of weird if you've got, like, well, you got a guy here standing in the corridor and you can hear somebody else from somewhere else in the ship because it's so close. Like, you got to kind of spread it out too.
So how big is the outer hull of the ship in comparison to the world that you use, like the Unity or Blender blocks? How many squares large is, like, the main ship?
Very, very, very large. So as far as you had asked about scale earlier, the exterior components that you see out of the window are not necessarily to scale. but they are to scale from the perspective of the room you're observing them from. So if you're looking out the windows on the bridge, that exterior piece is going to be more or less to scale from how you would see it on the bridge. So it may not necessarily reflect the same scale of if you're seeing an exterior component elsewhere in the build.
Oh, wow. Well, I will say much kudos for the thought process into it, because this one of my favorite details.
Yeah, the Galaxy class starship in universe is, I want to say it's like 800 meters long. So I mean it's enormous, and it's 42 decks thick. So it's quite a sizable starship. The best view, the best idea of sense of scale would probably be the Star Drive lounge, where you can actually see the rear of the ship. So that's another thing as far as doing my own thing design-wise, is at the base of the neck on the starship, there's this row of 14 windows, right? There's 7 on either side of this like spine piece. Those windows are the Star Drive lounge. On the actual computer display panel, as far as like the actual blueprints in Star Trek, there is a lounge there. It's never actually been done on screen, so I imagined up and came up with my own rendition of, well, what would this room look like? And the interesting thing is, like, your view from those windows is going to be the whole ass end of the ship. So it gives you a really good idea as far as like just how big this starship is that you're on.
Oh, wow. So I'm kind of curious, how many rooms are in like this, in the main deck here that we're in, with the conference room and the what's over there?
So this main deck, you have the bridge, the ready room, captain's office, the conference room, and then the 2 turbolifts.
Can we see the captain's room? The captain's office?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm the captain. I have that authority.
Gotta hope so, or we're just falling around somewhere we don't know what we call captain.
So this is the captain's office.
Oh, wow.
And whenever there is space, I often put this plaque here on most of my ships, whenever I can find space for it.
Wonderful and unique. People who made this group of friends something special. This world can be a better place just by being yourself. So when you a woo from the heart. Nice touch.
Yeah. And as far as details, design, stuff like that, it's fun to have stuff that is reminiscent to the character's backstory. So, for example, these hubcaps here, a friend of mine modeled these for me. These are hubcaps from a 1983 Buick Regal, which was my first car IRL. Whereas the, in-universe version of my Wolf character, the first starship he was stationed on was a Cheyenne class, hence this little model over here. And Star Trek has often had that in the captain's ready room, where you'll have, like, little details to explain parts of the backstory of the character, things like that. So that's what this is. And this is the standalone painting of the Fantasia here by itself.
Oh, wow. Another really well... Is this done by the same guy who did the other one?
Yes. I try to, as much as possible, use his art pieces, because I'll actually go on DeviantArt and buy the high-resolution version of the photo and then use those to decorate. And whenever somebody asks, I always give a shout-out to his work, because it's absolutely fantastic. And at the same time, using his work to decorate with starship photos keeps it consistent that way, too.
So does that artist know about the worlds you built here in VRChat and that they're here, may I ask?
I believe I've told him when we were doing commissions. I need to reach out to him again, though, because like I would love to be able to show him, like, check out this crap I'm building,
Oh.
So here's another better view of the exterior on the starship. So this risen up area we are sitting on, this is deck 1, below that is deck 2, and if you look that edge just beyond those black stripes, that is the top of deck 3 over there. And if you jump up, you can just kind of see it continues on into the horizon, because it's quite a sizable ship.
Oh, it is a sizable ship. The view from out the
so
window.
A little bit about
Sorry.
the little about the name of the starship. Is anyone familiar with the movie Neverending Story?
Yep.
Yeah.
I'm over here, dude.
So,
I've heard it, but I don't remember. You may have to
So in the movie, The Never-Ending Story, which is itself based off the book by the same title, in the movie, the realm of the human imagination is called Fantasia. There's a scene in the movie in which the kid is trying to reach the boundaries of Fantasia to save the day, right? And this one character explains to him that, like, you're being foolish because Fantasia is the realm of the human imagination. It has no boundaries. And I always thought that would be a really badass name for a big, like, exploration ship, like a Galaxy class, Fantasia. So that's the reasoning behind the name I chose for my ship. Long before I actually had the skill to make it a reality, that was a name I had in mind for it. So that's why I have a copy of The Never-Ending Story on the captain's desk to explain where that reference is from.
Ah, I love the reference.
Another feature a lot of my newer ships have is the captain's comm badge. So I mentioned I use TXL video player. I mean, I got to give a shout out to him because it's fantastic stuff. But the TXL video player also comes with a microphone prefab. And basically what I've done is I've used that prefab but replaced the mesh with a Star Trek comm badge. That way you can just hold the trigger and it's a global microphone that you can, like, hey, all hands come to the lounge, having a party, whatever, that kind of thing. And it's handy to have from time to time. But unless you know what it is, it's just going to look like just generic decoration. So it keeps it on the down low a little bit too. So everybody's not like, hey, I'm going to grab the microphone and say stupid stuff. Lol.
I do have one question for you. With since you started making ships because of your own curiosity, what was it like for you seeing the GFC use your same worlds for their own projects with their role plays and stuff? Did it make the world feel more lived in from what you were expecting initially?
A little bit, but it was definitely... It made me feel happy to see others using something I've put time and effort in to build, using it for what I intended it for. People to hang out, have a good time, bring others together, host events, things like that. And because there have been times when I've done projects completely for free simply because, like, I know somebody would really enjoy it. And the flagships of the other fleet is usually a case of that. So, for example, the wild card is the flagship for the GFC fleet, and it gets a lot of traffic, as you've seen yourself. The USS Androgyny is the flagship for the Star Trek VRC group. It gets a lot of traffic as well. So those ones I will try to regularly update when I have time, simply because I know it gets a lot of traffic. A lot of people enjoy and appreciate hanging out there, and it does the job I intended it for, bringing people together.
So when you see some of those role plays going on and see, like, for example, during the interview we did with the GFC, the security staff standing there over by the entrance and stuff, it does feel a lot more lived in or authentic to, like, you're actually on a ship with people with captains and the engineering and stuff. It is a very interesting feel versus, like, when I first explored the ship before I saw people in it, anyway.
Yeah, it's definitely great to see it being used in a more, what feels like, in-universe way of doing it. You got the security staff, keep an eye on everything, making sure it's all good, Nothing to see here, move it on, And it makes it a lot more immersive to see it being enjoyed by people who properly enjoy it, fellow Star Trek fans. For the longest time, I wanted to do a red alert function, because like in Star Trek, they call a red alert, the lights start flashing red, the lights go dim, and didn't know how to do that, and then realized it was actually way, way more simple than I had initially thought, because people were telling me, like, oh yeah, you got to animate the lights to flash on and off, and this and that, and I'm like, that sounds complicated. So what we ended up doing is it toggles the red alert light fixtures on and off. The flashing red alert is basically just a Poyomi flipbook animation. So basically it's the Unity equivalent of a GIF image where it just, cycles, and sound effects, and then it toggles the post-processing to make the lights dark. And the first time I implemented this, the guy was bumping the switch all the time when he would sit down in the captain's chair because he's in full body. So it's a 2-button system. So the left one arms red alert, and then the right one activates red alert. So you arm it with this one, activate it with that one. And your best view is probably going to be here at the front of the bridge and see just like how much light bling is going on.
Oh, wow.
And oftentimes in the show, red alert will have the siren and then it'll go silent. So that it doesn't get irritating, I've done the same thing. So it'll chime 10 times, then go silent.
Oh, wow. I love that detail, by the way. So when you're doing research for these ships or building these things, how much research into the in-universe ship or how they do things do you do? And how do you keep track of all that information? It's got to be a lot.
Lots and lots of web browser links, photos and references, stuff like that. Like if it's a ship design I'm familiar with, then a lot of times I can recall it from memory because I'm like hardcore fan like that. But if it's something that they need something specific design-wise, I will often use a lot of photos and references. The ones I enjoy doing, though, are the ones from scratch where I can just kind of like, okay, take my knowledge as far as Star Trek design style and do my own thing with it. The Freedom class that I did for my friend Tintype is an example of that. So it's a Star Trek Next Generation era ship, so it has these like rounded padded walls, but instead of being a weird teardrop shape like this, it's a round bridge, more like a traditional Star Trek bridge. And I really enjoyed doing this design language, but a completely different bridge layout than what you're normally used to seeing.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, it looks very good, by the way. I'm just floored.
So the red alert function is a global effect, and it has flashing light panels in all of the corridors and areas of the ship. So whenever you hit red alert, all of those light panels come on throughout the entire world, and everybody in the world is going to know we're at red alert. All hands to battle stations.
Another fun question I have with a ship of this size with all the floors: how long does it take to optimize something like this?
Optimization is kind of something I keep in mind throughout the build as far as like polygon count, like I was saying earlier, not using complicated textures unless I have to. For example, over here, this padding is a single color, this chrome strip is a single color, and the door is a single color, whereas the sticker on the door, that's an actual texture because you need it to you need text on there to say something. And then the little stripes here has like a normal map and a metallic map on it because, it's going for that brushed metal finish. So instead of having just a smooth single color, it actually has, texture to it. But as far as what does and doesn't need a complicated texture on it, polygon count, occlusion, stuff like that, that's stuff I keep in mind all throughout the build process. So as far as the time that the optimization takes is, I don't really know, simply because it's something I incorporate throughout the build process.
Okay. So would you mind if we go see some of the other floors and decks of the ship, Mask? Because you have a lot. When I saw thing, there's a lot of them.
Oh, yeah. Time for a proper run-through. So we'll go to Deck 10.
Okay. Oh. I got the right deck? I hope I did. Hold on. Oh, there we go. I went to the wrong floor.
Deck 10, not 12.
Oops.
I thought he went to a different floor. Oh my God.
Something I would point out for anybody interested and anybody watching, if you're ever in one of my Star Trek worlds, if you see a door that has a little button panel next to it, that means it's a door you can go through. Whereas if you see a door that has no button panels, chances are it's just there for aesthetics to, complete the scene. It's useful to know that way you're not wandering around getting lost.
Okay.
So this is pretty close to canon the way this looks. This is the 10 forward lounge, which sits on the front of the saucer of the starship.
Oh, so that's the same. Oh, is this the same lounge you were referencing earlier that's on the spine of the ship?
No, that's the Star Drive lounge. We'll get to that last.
Okay. Oh.
So this one's on the front of the ship, like the very leading edge of the saucer. So the room setup is very similar to how it would have appeared in Next Generation, but the color palette and design is completely different because, this is the Fantasia, not the Enterprise, so do your own thing with it.
I say one of my, so is this the exact same materializer from the show? You have the food materializer created?
I mean, it's a replicator. I mean, it's not exactly like it was in the show, but it's close.
Wow. So with this room, how long did it take for the planning and placement of this one and the modeling for it? All the details and stuff that are here.
This one took a little bit longer than normal. Like this was a couple of day process of nitpicking and adjusting until it looked and felt just right. Because 10 Forward is one of those rooms from Next Generation that like a lot of people are going to know and recognize this particular room, so it's got to feel right. The Defiant class bridge I did is another example of that. Like I had nitpicked the adjustment of the consoles and layout of a lot of stuff on the bridge, like off and on for a few days before I was satisfied with how it looks, because it needs to feel right. It doesn't have to be perfect, but as long as it feels like what you intend it to be.
So with trying to make it feel like it does in the show, did that take was that a quite easy feat to accomplish? And Manson, what was it like for you after working on a room like this, coming into VR and seeing your work for the first time, especially back when you were just starting out?
Yeah, when I had done the 10 Forward Lounge, I'd done a handful of different lounges that I'd designed myself to have that Star Trek kind of look. But it's one thing to be in a lounge, it's another thing to be in the lounge that so many people remember growing up with in 90s Star Trek. So it was definitely fun to come in here when it was finished, when it was lit, and like, I remember growing up in this room, so to speak. You know, being a kid watching The Next Generation and, you know, so many scenes of the show happening in this particular room, and being able to stand in here and see it and feel being in here is really cool.
I'm sure the nostalgia you get from being in your own worlds is probably crazy.
There was a particular time, this is early on in my world building, I had the only canon starship bridge I ever did was one that's the Enterprise D bridge, and it hasn't been updated in forever. And I had a friend of mine who was, you know, just discovering that I do Trek worlds, and he was on the bridge and checking it out, and I could tell he was getting kind of teary-eyed and emotional. I'm like, are you okay? And he's like, dude, I grew up with this bridge, and being able to stand here, that this is fucking amazing. And it was that particular day I realized, like, I know how amazing it is to me. I know what Star Trek feels to me. It's a big part of who I am. And seeing somebody else enjoy something I had put my time and effort and passion into as much as I was, it was that particular day I kind of realized, like, this is why I do what I do. This is why I build your ship or whatever, because I don't necessarily want to build a canon ship. I want you to have that special experience on your ship. And that's something unique.
Oh, so I have a one question for you in terms of your drive in making these worlds. What drove you when you started versus what drives you now? Is it the same reason why you make worlds, or did it change over time?
So, I mean, I got into world building to bring friends together, to have cool places to host. I originally did the Fantasia with the intention to just do, like, I want to build my own starship world now that I'm realizing my skill's decent enough that I might actually be able to accomplish this. And initially I'd only planned to build the Fantasia and then maybe move on to a different style world, but I got enough interest from friends and interested people of the, dude, you building a Star Trek world? It's like so badass, because there's not really any decent Star Trek worlds on the platform at the time. And it's graduated from building it for myself to building it for friends and others to building commissions here and there. And it's nice to look back from where I started, as far as starting from scratch, world building, figuring out Unity, figuring out Blender as I go, to this point, you know, 50 Starship Worlds later. I can safely say I'm probably the best Star Trek themed world builder in VRChat, and the only one who does it with the regularness that there's going to be something new every so often.
Oh, well, I can definitely tell that you are one of the best Star Trek builders. In fact, I think the only Star Trek worlds I've ever seen are yours.
Speaking of amazing things, though, we should go to the next area. I'll show you a sick bay.
Oh, of course. Honestly, one of my favorite features so far has got to be the door noises. The animations of doors.
Right. And that's another thing that it's got to feel right. Like when I started out building Star Trek worlds, I had no idea how to do animations for doors. So the doors were just static, and you had to know based on the panels whether you could walk through the door or not, right? And now that the doors are animated, it's so much more realistic that way. The cool thing is we were doing an animation originally on the doors. I had a friend walk me through how to do it. And whenever the doors would open, it plays that whoosh noise, but there was like a crack noise along with the whoosh. And the reason being is for that split second it takes to sync across networks, so that when Ren triggers the door, it also triggers for you so you can see the door being opened. For that split second it takes to synchronize across network, it's causing the audio to lag just enough that it's making a crack noise. So the way these ones work, this isn't even an animation, this is an Udon script that basically says, hey, if a player occupies the collider box trigger for this door, play the sound in the open animation. And until the player count within this collider box goes back to 0, stay open. So in other words, it's network synced without having to be network synced, because as long as there is a player here, these objects are going to slide apart and play the noise. So everybody else is going to observe that as well.
Oh, wow. So what would what is the difference in latency between like doing an animation versus Udon script? Is there any latency at all, or does that happen pretty flawlessly?
I'm not sure, but the latency was enough that it was causing a crack artifacting in the sound effect, and that was driving me crazy, and I wanted it to be nice and clean, so that's why it was suggested I do an Udon script instead to basically slide the pieces apart when necessary.
Okay. Well, doors are amazing.
We will go to deck 12 next.
Okay, let's hope I go to the right one. Boop. Hey, I did.
So a fun feature as far as originality, this is something you're probably not going to see on most Star Trek ships, but my boyfriend at the time, when I was doing the Fantasia initially, huge rubber latex fan. So here we have Naughty's rubber research lab.
Interesting.
This has, of course, graduated into its own standalone world, and it's meant to look like, hey, you got some generic Star Trek room paneling, make it look like a generic Star Trek kind of room, but you got your various, latex subject storage tubes. You've got your central focal point here. The inspiration behind this room is there was, I want to say it was FWA one year, like their artwork and stuff had done for the convention had this like sci-fi science lab kind of vibe to it with like test tubes and stuff going on, and I kind of liked that idea, so I adapted that idea of the tubes, but I wanted to have the latex to be a focal point of interest in the room. So we did this great big pool. You got your latex kind of moving into the center here to again draw your attention into the middle of the room, and the white lights up here serve the purpose of making a shiny surface like latex or metal or something, makes it pop more and makes it reflect better. Having those additional bright colors in the scene.
Well, I have a feeling it's going to be an obvious answer, but what was the initial purpose of making a room like this?
I wanted Naughty to have a special place of his own on my starship. And him being into latex, I thought, well, why don't we do like a evil latex lab kind of thing, right? So the idea adapted from there. And originally this lab was kind of jank. Some of the models I used were SketchUp rips, and then I got into building my own stuff. That way I know what I'm dealing with. And properly polished it, reimagined it into this particular design here. And there is another standalone version. It's called Naughty's Latex Lab, which is on his VRChat account. The center room is the same, but it has like additional areas, like there's like a game room and a lounge and stuff added onto it to basically expand it into its own standalone world.
Oh wow! So,
and then
yeah,
go ahead.
No, you continue on. I'll let you finish your story.
Over here on the other side of the hallway, we have sick bay. Now, a lot of times in Star Trek shows, sick bays, there's like half a dozen beds. It looks like, like a small doctor's office kind of thing. But keep in mind, this is a Galaxy-class starship, and the crew complement can be anywhere between 1,000 to like 3,000 people. So you're going to need a proper medical ward for that number of people. So this is like a proper size sickbay ward.
Oh wow, this is huge. All the details in the room. It's pretty large and wide open. Oh.
Yeah, I wanted the medical officer's office. I wanted to be here in the center of the room, to be think of it kind of like a prison guard tower type thing. Like you want to have a central point where you can see what's going on in the entire room at any given moment.
So is this room based off any specific ship, or did you like create this on your own?
No, this is original design. My friend Shadow made the beds, the little computer screens above the beds, and then also the wall-mounted computer stuff as well.
Oh wow! Oh, I'm gonna go take the audience
again.
to
He
a
was
bed.
my partner in crime with this. Yeah, go for it.
Oh,
Taking the audience to bed. Here you go.
keep your dirty mind to yourself, Mr. Raptor.
Here we have this genuine Star Trek style bed with velour or something like that. You know, it's gonna be great.
Yeah.
Oh,
Hey, you lay down. You just don't worry. You'll be fixed up in no time. Just give me a shot, and I'll be out of here.
See that's why you gotta have a doctor who's got like the bedside manner of like Zap Brannigan. Like, you just want to lay back here on this comfortable bed covered in velour. It's going to be fine.
so
Yeah.
I have a question. Do you have a favorite doctor from the show, from Star Trek?
I think my favorite Doctor character would probably be Bashir from Deep Space Nine. Especially from a character growth standpoint, because when the series started, he had that very, like, you know, he's the new kid in this position of chief medical officer, and he's, you know, oh, he's excited, this is going to be so great, and then developed from medical officer on a space station in the middle of freaking nowhere to, like, espionage and spy work and things like that because of the characters he got involved with over the progress of the series, and became a much more complex character than he originally started out as.
Oh, well, thank you for sharing. And in this room particularly, do you have any favorite places in here, and why?
Probably the main sick bay, just because the detail and all of the visual stuff that really pops and grabs your attention. Another aspect I wanted to make sure I add in the sick bay particularly is plants and inviting pictures, because it's a medical ward. Maybe you're in here not having such a great day. You want to have something, you know, like a proper doctor's office makes it feel a little more warm and inviting. So you've got plants to decorate, you've got photos, and or a real doctor's office, they're probably real world photos, but this is a virtual doctor's office, so these are all photos from various different VRChat worlds that have really pretty vistas.
Oh.
So there's a photo over here, and then I've got two more to decorate over here.
Oh.
And it's rarely ever shown in Star Trek, but technically your sickbay is going to have a morgue, so that's what this is.
Ah, so these three rooms are morgues? Or is this particular one?
No, this one is a morgue. This one is a morgue. This one is a medical lab. And anyone familiar with Star Trek is probably going to recognize these goofy little machines with the spinning lights.
Oh. Well, for those who don't know, would you mind explaining what those things are?
Yeah, so a lot of times you see like a science lab or some dude's research facility in a Star Trek thing. Almost always you're going to have this particular prop somewhere in the scene, and basically this is like two water pump housings with a plastic tube full of neon lights spinning around. It doesn't really do anything, but it makes an interesting looking, ooh, it's a science doodad, you know, kind of thing. But this is kind of a meme as far as sci-fi props in general, because it's appeared in a lot of Star Trek series. It's appeared in a handful of other sci-fi television series too. So it's kind of it's its own meme.
Oh. So with the planning of this area, this room for the lab, what inspired you to make it? Is there a particular ship or style you're going for, and what made you choose the positions and props in here?
This room is actually one of the more or less least inspired rooms, because I wanted to do a Star Trek lab, and I always liked they had like these great big like giant globe-looking lights on the wall in Next Generation labs. That was really my only source of inspiration in this room. The rest of this was just kind of just ad-libbed from stuff you would see in a Star Trek science lab, just kind of laid out in a manner that kind of makes sense.
Oh. Well, this thing in the center here definitely grabs your attention when it's the first thing when you enter here too.
So this was a computer. Shadow gave me this. I'm not really sure where he got it from, but this was a computer console that appeared a couple times during Star Trek Voyager, and it totally doesn't look like a TARDIS control console at all.
No, not at all.
The operating room over here, oftentimes those are just like part of the the sickbay room, but I decided to partition it off into its own separate room, just in case you need to isolate or something.
Oh wow! I love the detail in here as well between the ship consoles, the side panels as well.
Thank you.
Very colorful and I enjoy it. Very well put together. I like it. Oh,
Thank you.
yeah. Now with these panels here,
So
are those handmade or did you get those from somewhere? Like the panels behind you.
these panels were designed by my friend Shadow, and then we just kind of scaled them to fit as needed on the UV map.
Oh, okay. Oh.
Another thing to bear in mind as far as optimization is the UV map on that panel, that one, and that one are all exactly the same. So even though this texture is in 4 locations, it only occurs once on a UV map. So saves a little bit of optimization there too.
Oh, very nifty. I'm actually quite impressed with how many frames I have in this world with all the details of stuff in here. I'm at like 100 frames myself. Very, very well done, I'll say. Bravo.
It's all the occlusion, mostly. It's like if you ever like poke your head through the wall and things are like flipping on and off and toggling and stuff like that, it's the occlusion making sure you're not going to see stuff that's outside of what you're looking at.
So one question as well for like things like optimization and proper building was how did you figure that stuff out, and did you have any specific tutors or someone to show you, or did you find stuff on the internet and include it over time?
I've had a handful of friends who have been helpful in explaining different methods to optimize. Like I know texture memory and polygon count is something to always keep in mind. It's been a process, kind of 50-50 of tips and tricks from people looking up on YouTube how to do it and figuring it out for myself too. Because there's been a couple of times when somebody suggests, like, oh, Ren, you could do this super cool thing. And I'm like, that's great, but like, do you know how to do that? Because like, I don't know where I'd go out to figure that out on myself, but if you want to show me how to do it, that kind of a thing.
Oh. So what has been some of the best resources you've come across to help learn world building or optimization for Unity?
Trial and error.
Yeah.
I mean, the Ren's Lake House, the original version. There's 2 separate versions. So there's Ren's Lake House, as I originally built it back in the day, with all the crap added in there, and it's a case of when you start adding this and adding that and adding this and adding that, like the world gets full of stuff, and then your frames get lower and lower and lower. Especially when I didn't know how to do optimization or occlusion at the time. The revisited version of Ren's Lake House runs like butter smooth because I'm applying all of my current world building skills to revamp one of my original ones. But I left up both versions because I want the original version to kind of be a time capsule, so to speak, from that period. And then the revisited one is more or less the same world, but revamped and polished with my current build skill. It's like if you ever want to see how far I've come as far as optimization, go to the original Ren's Lake House, and your frames are going to be like.
Oh, one little look.
So, next area.
Next area. Oh, this is so far a really awesome room as well. You can definitely tell the attention you put in here with the placements, the details, the consoles, all of that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So this will be deck 13.
All right.
Now, this is one of the auxiliary shuttle bays, not the full-size one. But this sits at the back of the neck on the star drive section of the starship facing rearward. I've never gotten around to doing an exterior view for this room, but since this is more or less at the back area of the ship, this corridor is only partial, but something I will often do is a faux corridor. So, for example, if you try to go this way, you can't, but it looks as if the corridor does continue on.
Yeah, it does. Oh.
And as far as door sounds, this one is a cargo bay door.
Oh.
The first shuttle bay I ever did was for my friend Zach on his ship, the USS Taurus. His was a gift project. At the time, he was going through kind of an emotional low point. He had recently lost a friend, and he was having a hard time dealing with it because he had another friend who he had lost about a year prior. So he was wanting ways to, well, I felt he could use something positive in his life to help lift his spirits. And so I ended up working on his ship, and I surprised him by doing the first shuttle bay I ever did. And his shuttle bay has 2 shuttles in it, and each one of those 2 shuttles is named after the friends that he had lost.
Oh, wow. That is a very sweet detail. That's a very kind gesture for you to do.
Like, even in Star Trek, each one of the little shuttlecraft is going to have a name to it, and I figured that would be a proper way to remember them, because his shuttle bay has, like, pool tables and game stuff set up here in the middle of the room, so it's a great spot to socialize, and also the friends who are no longer with us can be there in spirit, so to speak.
Oh, wow.
So I've kept with that where applicable whenever I do a shuttle bay. So this one here is named for Silas Sable, who had passed away last year, and the one over here in the corner is called Booper, which is named after our friend Booper Bohr, who we lost during the pandemic.
I'm sorry for your loss, by the way. Oh.
Yeah, no doubt.
But
I do really enjoy the shuttle bay. Well, did you model these ships here yourself?
So there's a handful of things that I don't model myself. This one, if I remember correctly, I think Shadow got this model ripped from STO, and then I had to go through the whole damn thing and basically redo a lot of the geometry so like I can render lighting on without it looking terrible. Because again, if you're going to mess with video game models or models that other people have built or SketchUp models, like, you don't know a lot of the details as far as how it's put together. Again, why if you're building world stuff, like, you should really do it from scratch yourself. That way you know it, inside and out. And the final product looks nice, but there's no interior, so it's more just, it's a placeholder, so to speak, to represent, you're like, hey, it's a shuttlecraft,
Well, a fun question I have for you is, how do you keep track of the projects and all the assets you have built over time for all the ships? Like, do you have a certain system in which you keep organized, or is it like some people is just a folder? Yeah. Hello, I'm actually here to interrupt the episode you're watching really quick to ask you a favor. Please come join us at any of the other locations we have. You can find us on YouTube and Spotify, both of which we post our episodes and are very up to date on both. We have Discord where you go to hang out all the time. We're gaming and shooting the breeze over with many people over that way. Feel free to come join us. I invite you. If you wish to support us, we have a Patreon where we post a bunch of random bits, bobs, and extra podcasts every once in a while for you to go enjoy. Also, if you wish to support us while on VRChat, we're now part of the creator economy. So please come join if you wish to support us there. It's there for you to choose if you so wish. And thank you very much. And a special thanks to some of the people who have signed up on our Patreon, which are as follows. And I have written down so I'll remember. And that's a tough thing. Forbidden Zero, Niche, Aliquum, Future Oracle, Lesser Capybara, and Frozen. Thank you all very much. Enjoy the rest of the episode.
well, I've got a folder, and then within the folder I've got corridors, corridor prefabs, rooms, room prefabs, individual components that I can use to make new rooms from, like if I need to draw off existing materials I have. Say, for example, I have a prefab that's, it's a wall section and a regular door and a wide door and a cargo bay door, like pieces that I'm going to use frequently in any particular build that I can bring that into the scene, lay out where I need the doors and that kind of thing there. Because I will basically frame out a new room whenever I'm doing something new in Unity and then export that into Blender and polish it into like a proper completed model.
So how large is that folder with all the prefabs and stuff in it between doors, rooms, and pieces?
Like 30 something gigs, something like that.
That's not too bad.
Last time I backed it up, it was like 30 something gigs, and most of that's just Blender files. Some of it's textures for computer panels and things like that. But
well, Ren, not to cut you short, but I gotta go real quick and everything else. It's nice meeting you, and you folks have a good one. Hope I catch you on the next time, and maybe, just maybe, you might see me on a star. We'll talk to you guys later. I gotta go.
Bye.
Bye.
Next area?
Next area.
So we'll save the lounge for last. Go to deck 36. That's main engineering.
Okay. Oh.
So if you have your world volume up, you'll probably hear the warp core sound effect about here.
Ooh, yes.
So this is main engineering, inspired by a couple of different things. So your entry area here is more or less inspired by TNG. You got an area around your situation diagnostic table going on. I had seen a concept somebody did on DeviantArt where it's a TNG style engineering, but it's like a big two-story thing, whereas TNG engineering was mostly just a single story and it only had diagnostics consoles on the one side. So I figured, why not expand on that? You do a diagnostic console area on both sides, make it feel larger that way, then do a two-story setup where you've got a conference room specifically for the engineering staff, and then you have a chief engineer's office over on the other side. And I like the way this design came out because you have this atrium here which kind of opens up the space a lot, and then I've got a plaque here, that way you can tell, at a glance, well, this is engineering on the USS so-and-so,
Oh.
Plus you have this nice open two-story area here to see the warp core going on.
So how long did it take you to create model and think out the warp core here? It looks dope between all the effects, the rolling lights. It looks like it would.
A while. This round room with the warp core is probably the most time-consuming part of this particular room build, engineering, because the rest of it's just laying out your consoles, figuring out where you want your walls, laying it all out to where it's, it makes sense. But the details in the warp core took like a while.
I can only imagine. So how did you choose to do the effects in the warp core between the rolling lights going down the tube there and everything else like that?
So I wasn't sure how to do it. Again, people were telling me like animations, but my friend Shadow we ended up using the same method we used for Red Alert. This is just a Poyomi flipbook, so it's just like an animated rolling texture like a GIF.
Oh wow.
So the way each one of these ribs of lights is laid out on the UV map is just like little strips across the UV map. So it's basically just an animated GIF of that light rolling down, and then I can tint the color as needed. So, ta-da, you've got your animated warp core.
Oh wow. So how long would like if you give a rough guess for between modeling, texturing, and adding the rolling texture, how long did it take you to finish the warp core?
Over the period of days I worked on it, probably the better part of 10, 12 hours at least. Just and the reason I say that is because like any one of my builds, especially when I'm doing something from scratch, there's a degree of nitpicking on my part because I'm a Star Trek fan. I want it to look right. I'm particular, so there's a large degree of like nitpicking and adjusting, making sure this is moved in space just right. Like for example, these particular side pipes was like it had to be laid out in a way that looked right, but normally I would do like a 45-degree angle to where it would just come straight back, but it didn't look quite right how it does in the show, so they're in sort of like a weird tilt. And another design change I made is the warp core coolant tanks in Next Generation is just a single column directly behind the warp core, and you don't get to see them. So instead, I've done 2 columns that are situated slightly on either side of the warp core, so it adds to the amount of technical stuff you're seeing here in the room whenever the warp core is doing stuff.
Oh, well, it definitely adds to the detail of the room. It's honestly a really awesome room to sit in. Not that the doctor's area isn't, but being in engineering is iconic as well.
Yeah.
Oh.
The chief engineer's office, I should point out over here, and this is one spot where I went kind of lazy. Rather than having like stairs or something like that, you just click on a button, teleport up there. So the engineer's office and the conference room on the other side, these are matte paintings that were used for exterior visual effects shots in 90s Star Trek.
Oh, wow.
And it took a little bit of digging on the internet to find high-resolution samples of these to use, because like I wanted it to look nice.
Oh, I don't blame you.
It's like if ever you're watching Star Trek and you got like an establishing shot of Bajor and you got a bunch of little people just walking around kind of green screened in there, this is the matte painting that was originally used for those kinds of scenes.
Oh, wow. So they would green screen in people for those shots. I had no idea.
Like nowadays it's all just like CG, but back in the day that was some of the tricks they would use. Like it's a very highly detailed matte painting to look like the environment, and a lot of times they would just green screen and people moving around or like big video screens and stuff like that.
Oh, so that's actually really awesome. I never knew that. Thanks for sharing that, by the way.
Like a lot of times back in 90s Star Trek, like if they're on a alien planet on an away mission or whatnot, a lot of times some of those backdrops behind the environment are actually just a large matte painting.
Oh, wow. Really? That's actually cool.
Another one they used to use, and I'll point this out over here, is the Jeffries tube. So they're like the maintenance access shafts inside of a starship. There would be sets of Jeffries tubes, but there were certain spots where if you look down, the maintenance crawl space of the Jeffries tube, you would just see it looks like the vanishing point is not consistent when you're looking down the shaft. The reason being is because it reaches a point where it's just a matte painting of the Jeffries tube continuing on to save on not have to make literally hundreds of meters of Jeffries tubes to make it look right. It's just a painting. So I've kind of done the same thing here. As opposed to making an actual Jeffries tube, it's just a picture of a Jeffries tube to make it look like it's legit there, even though it's totally not.
Oh, wow. That's actually pretty interesting. Now, in any of your builds, did you ever model a real full Flixborough Jeffries tube, or are they all just pictures?
No, I've thought about it though, because somebody suggested using a Jeffries tube as like a secret method to get to a different area or something like that. But maybe at some point, we'll see.
Okay. Whoa. Pretty neat details, let's say. Thank you very much. Whoa. So, of most of, do you have any favorite facts or bits of information from the show that I ask?
Like just Star Trek in general?
Yeah, in general.
Well, the interesting thing about, for example, warp drive here in engineering is they always talk about, going faster than the speed of light, like in Star Trek, not Star Trek, Star Wars, it's referred to as light speed. In Star Trek, it's referred to as warp speed. Same thing, faster than light travel. In Star Wars, from what I understand, you're physically going faster than the speed of light, which, as far as we know scientifically, is not possible. In Star Trek, you are traveling faster than the speed of light, but you're not actually traveling faster than zero. So the reason being is how warp drive in Star Trek works is based on actual scientific theory as far as like how we think faster than light travel could theoretically work. So think of it this way. Your starship is at no point traveling faster than the speed of light. It's actually traveling at basically zero. Instead, you have your warp drive, which creates a bubble of energy around the ship and basically distorts the flow of space-time around the ship faster than the speed of light. So think of it this way. Instead of rowing a boat down a river, the boat is stationary and the river is moving around you.
Oh.
That's more or less how warp drive works. So you're basically controlling the flow of space around your object faster than the speed of light, and you're not breaking the laws of physics because you yourself are not physically traveling faster than the speed of light. So when you watch a starship in Star Trek go to warp, and it does the whole like stretches out and then flashes, it's thought theoretically that when you, for example, when you break the sound barrier, you get that sonic boom. Theoretically, when you break the light barrier, you're going to get a big flash because that barrier has been broken. Not from the perspective of the people on the ship, though, but from the observer's perspective, the camera watching that ship go to warp, you're going to see that object appear to be in multiple places at once and flash breaking that light barrier, which is impossible, but from the observer's perspective, you would see it. Theoretically. That's why they always have that warp flash and stuff in Star Trek.
Well, actually, fun fact that you mentioned that style of warp drive. I believe I remember reading somewhere that there are couple different groups of people, I believe MIT is one of them, working on a warp drive that would do a similar thing by bending two places in space into a single point. You just kind of travel over that line.
The cool thing is we're at an age technology-wise where we're finally starting to realize that it might actually be possible to do that. The level of energy to do so is astronomical, but the idea that it might actually be possible to travel from one place to another by bending reality around you rather than physically moving through reality.
You know, something else, even though I wonder if that started in Star Trek first, the whole bending thing, and then became a thing kind of like the flip phones did back in the day with, like for example, the Razor.
So the warp drive principle in Star Trek was inspired by real-world scientific theory. It was, I believe it's called the Alcubierre warp drive. If you Google it, it's something like that. I don't know how the hell to spell it, but I believe it's called the Alcubierre warp drive, like, theory, and that was this particular gentleman's theory on how faster than light travel might be possible within the realm of what we know at the time, and that was, I want to say, the early 1960s. And that's what Roddenberry based his warp drive idea off of in Star Trek. That's what makes Star Trek really cool, is there's always a lot of inspiration or based off of either scientific facts or scientific theories that might potentially be true. And the things that aren't are explained in a manner that makes it sound just as legit as the things that are legit. For example, the transporter. I forget how it's phrased, but Heisenberg's uncertainty principle says that it's impossible to know what is it, the velocity and the rotation of a given particle at any given time. It's impossible to know both of those factors perfectly at the same time. You can either know one or the other, or a degree of one or the other, but not precisely both at the same time. So with that in mind, the transporter in Star Trek, which basically takes a living person, atom by atom, disassembles them, converts it into a digital code of information, sends that information elsewhere, and then reassembles that information into a person atom by atom, is scientifically improbable. I mean, maybe you can, create a machine that's going to take somebody apart atom by atom and turn it into a data stream, but you're likely to end up with a pile of soup on the other side, So, and it's because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle that that's the case. So how do you get around the fact that it is scientifically not likely that's even remotely possible? Well, you compensate for it. So if you ever watch Star Trek, there's a time or two where they mention a transporter component, like a physical component of the transporter, called the Heisenberg compensator. In other words, it's a physical in-universe component of the transporter that compensates for the fact that it's complete bullshit.
Well, it
sounds legit.
Even based on how you describe that, you also kind of can't know whether or not the person being reatomized on the other side is the same person, because if it deconstructs them, puts them in the data, then at that point, are you copying the data or moving it from a data stream into real life?
Yeah, it's that kind of what is that? Ship of Theseus kind of thing. Like if there's no original parts left, which one's actually the original, or is there even an original? So yeah, it's like when you copy a folder from one spot to another. Is the new one the real one? Is the existing one the real one? You know, which one's which? But yeah, it's the idea that that's why there are actually people in universe in Star Trek who don't like using a transporter, because they don't want to be torn apart atom by atom and technically be a duplicate of the person they were before they were atomically ripped apart.
Understandable. Actually, now that you say that, it's kind of interesting how much detail Star Trek actually put into thought like that between the teleporters and workhorse and stuff.
Like the level of thought and detail that goes into that is like extensive. Because I mean, I myself, I would not use a transporter. I would use a shuttlecraft to get to and from a planet. Because the idea of like, I'm going to be disassembled at the atomic level, and whatever version of me is reassembled on the other side is probably technically still me, but the me I was just torn apart atom by atom. So I'm a copy of whatever person I was before I was torn apart.
I don't blame you. I'm not sure. I don't think I would use one either for the same reason.
I mean, it's not the first time there's been a transporter accident in a Star Trek storyline. You know, like where, well, you're trying to beam somebody up from a planet and there's some sort of crazy power anomaly or whatnot that deflected the beam, and then we ended up with 2 transporter beams back, so now you got a duplicate of the same person. Crazy stuff like that.
Fair point. Oh, mind if we move on to the next room, if that's all right?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
One last little peek at this room before we go. Alrighty.
So deck 25 is the Galaxy Lounge.
Oh. Oh.
Do a fancy little logo kind of thing going on here. So this is the Star Drive Lounge I was talking about, with the windows that overlook the back of the ship.
Ah, okay. Love the door sounds. I'm gonna be honest.
So kind of the cozy lounge kind of vibe you would expect in Star Trek, but on a larger scale. So you've got your bar, your dining area up here. And then I've really gotten to like these room dividers. If you notice, I use them on the wild card as well. Because it kind of breaks up the room into separate areas. So you've got your bar, your dining area up here. You break it up a little bit. You've got your socializing, congregating area down here in the middle. And then you've got game areas on either side.
Oh. Some of these things you guys should
and
recognize.
Then
like Patras.
Oh, yeah. Oh. It's like I was talking to Stray, who modeled the cabinet for the new Patras there, and he's like, oh, you should try the new Patras. And I'm like, new one? He's like, yeah, I made a cabinet for it. And I'm like, a proper cabinet? Because the original version of Patras, it was fun, but I never liked the cabinet. It just looks like a giant, unsightly square. But now that's in like a proper arcade cabinet looking thing, like it looks fantastic.
It does look
fantastic. And you can't go wrong with Melon. Like so many hours of fun on that.
Oh.
And then I got these updated to the new pool tables the other day too.
I remember in the GFC interview, we are in a room similar to this. How many variants of this lounge are there, may I ask?
A couple of different ones, and it's interesting you ask that because there are several lounges that's basically a variant of this large lounge that somebody was critiquing me one time. They're like, Ren, a lot of your lounges look similar. And I'm like, you try building a brand new individual lounge for 50 freaking starships. You got to recycle a little bit here and there. So yeah, the GFC Lounge is basically, it's the Galaxy Star Drive Lounge, but instead of having these straight windows to overlook the rear of the ship, instead it's got more of like angled triangle-shaped windows because it's supposed to be on the nose of the front of the ship.
Ah, yes.
So it's just different wall configuration. Then I have a smaller version of this lounge that instead of having the piano, it's just got a wall here just past these pool tables. And this top area is smaller as well because it's supposed to feel, like a smaller ship. So it's not quite as big.
Oh.
And these are the windows that look out the rear of the ship that I was talking about. That gives you an idea of just how big of a ship we're supposed to be on.
The camera out the window so you guys can take a look at the view that's out here. It's a really nice view. I'm gonna be honest, I do very much enjoy all the detail you put to outside the ship. When you look out the window, you actually see the ship versus like pictures or an empty skybox of sorts.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh. So when setting this view up, how long did it take you to like match everything perfectly and model it so it looked the way you wanted it to?
Not too long. I basically took a Galaxy class model I had and cut out just the section that's going to be visible from the window. So, say for example, you're seeing the top side of the rear of the ship, but there's no bottom side. There's no back side of the nacelles because the nacelles are actually cut in half because you're only going to see the inside edge of it anyway, so why waste polygons on parts you're not going to see? And then, of course, cut it off wherever these windows are supposed to be on the ship so that you're only seeing everything from those windows down.
Oh. So so technically you're not inside a whole modeled ship. It's just what's viewable from your location at any given moment.
Yeah, like tell you what, I got flight mode. If you want, sit on my back and I'll show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
We're about to break the fourth wall.
See if I can find the seat. Ooh, I found it.
There we go. Okay, so if you see, this isn't a whole ship. It's just the component that you're actually going to see from the room.
Even if that's the case, the fact that you have the propulsion still modeled out and you can see the back of the ship is still very impressive. Even if this side looks... Well, so you can see exactly how the whole thing is modeled too.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, like I was saying, very mindful of how things are laid out in the scene is not to break the fourth wall. And the majority of all of these components are hidden by the saucer view from the bridge, which sits over there, so that you don't see just how much stuff is actually in the scene and you don't have to think about it that way.
Wow. Very impressive, to be honest.
Thank you.
Oh.
And the only reason you can see all that from the outside is because the way the occlusion works is from the player's camera point of view. If you can see it, then it'll be rendered. But right now, a lot of the components of the rest of that world are not being rendered because they're being occluded by all the walls that are blocking your view.
Oh. So I'll ask a more personal question now. Of all the world's events and things you've taken part of that have been in your worlds, what have been some of your favorite events or memories from inside your own creations?
I would have to say some of the biannual balls that Galaxy Fleet Command hosts. It is really cool to see the sheer volume of people from both VRChat and some of them coming over from Second Life to enjoy Star Trek and enjoy it in a world that I put together. And it's really nice to think that, like, sure, Delandian and his group have done a lot of work as far as bringing people together into their group, and that is fantastic, but it's also cool to think, like, they wouldn't have a place this nice to host those kind of events if it wasn't for me, and I've enjoyed being able to play a part in that. Another fond memory for me is a friend I met a few months back. They are... What's the word for somebody who is, like, authorized through the state or through the church or whatever to perform a marriage?
Oh.
Officiated or something like that?
You know, you would ask me any other time, I'd be able to tell you, but I'm smooth-brained right now, so I have no idea.
Right. But Another cool memory, though, is I had met them, and they had two particular friends of theirs, and they oversaw a wedding on Starbase 188. That is the Starbase world I built. So we had a big old group of people gathered there and had like a proper Star Trek themed wedding on a Starbase that I built.
Oh wow, I can understand why that'd be one of your favorite memories. I'm sure it was a pretty dope thing to take part in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was nice to see like a proper Star Trek style wedding and a proper Star Trek style setting that I built. And Starship number 50 is, I've definitely impressed myself. I mean, every now and then, like when my build skill gets better in different things, like sometimes you got to sit back and like, this looks fantastic, and then I get kind of emotional and choked up, like, I built this. This exists because I made it. Inspired by Star Trek, of course, but because I built it. Yeah, the captain's quarters on the USS Astraeus, which is Starship number 50, are probably my best work yet, as far as like as true to canon Star Trek as possible.
Oh, okay. Another question I have as well is, when you first put on the headset to come in VRChat before you started this journey, did you expect any of this journey whatsoever?
No, I got into VRChat, end of summer 2020. I was dealing with, like, the only time I ever get to be, like, the real me, so to speak, is with friends at conventions a handful of weekends out of the year. And now dealing with, like, well, conventions and hanging out with people may be completely off the table for a long time to come. Just the depression and emotional state that comes along with that. I was looking to reach out and socialize and spend time with people. And found VRChat. And like I said, I've met more people in the last 4 years than I thought I'd know in a lifetime, to the point where it's hard to keep track of some of them. And I have really enjoyed finding myself. Like, I have been... It's been really meaningful to me to discover that way back when I was originally inventing, my persona, who would this character be, right? He's probably a cool dude, likes to bring his friends together for a good time, that kind of thing, and, a positive guy to be there. And I just kind of hung out with people, went with the flow at conventions and stuff. I hung out with a couple of friends. But as far as that guy who enjoys bringing people together, it's really meant a lot to me to find through VRChat that, like, I've always been that wolf character, so to speak. I just had to meet the right people to find him. And I've really enjoyed exploring where this has gone. Because, if you asked me 10 years ago if I thought I'd be building my own starship, let alone ones for other people, no. But it's been really fun and meaningful to me. Can you hear me? My headset just locked up.
Yeah, I can hear you fine. I hear A-okay.
Okay, give me just a moment here to restart.
That's perfectly fine.
Yeah, it does this thing every now and then where, the screen freezes up and, usually doesn't crash SteamVR, but every now and then it does, so.
Okay. We'll wait just a second, but if you used to hear me okay?
Yes.
Okay. So a fun question I have for you as well is, what would younger you who grew up on Star Trek think of what you're building now?
I've asked myself that same question. It's if I was going to, and so when I was a kid, I used to love hanging out at Grandma's place for one of a handful of different reasons, but because Grandma got in the Springfield stations that played reruns of Next Generation, right, which weren't being played currently on the St. Louis stations. So I would like watching Star Trek. So if I had to tell 10-year-old me, dude, you're watching Star Trek now, but one day you are going to know more people than you can keep track of. You're going to be responsible for bringing a lot of those people together. And here's the cool part, Ren. You are not only going to have your own starship, but you're the one who built it, as well as many other ships for others. And like, yeah, I probably wouldn't have believed it and I'd have blown my own mind, but like, I would never have imagined I would be able to build my own ship and stand on the bridge of my own ship. And on top of that, be able to share that experience with so many others. And it's been a very rewarding journey thus far.
So from what has VRChat come to mean to you over these years, may I ask? Is it just some game or some platform? Has it become something more? And why?
It's a lot more than that. I have found who I truly am with the people I have met on this platform, and I have found my creativity in more ways than I thought possible. And when I first got into VR, it was on desktop mode, and I had gotten a retexture of the Zeus avatar about 2 weeks before I got my actual headset, because I figured, like, well, I'll give it a try, you know, like, see if I want to get a headset or not. And 2 months in, I was like, yeah, I want to get a headset. I want to be in here with everybody else. And for lack of a better way of putting it, when I had the headset on for the first time, and I saw my avatar in the mirror for the first time in VR, it was like the me I am on the inside was finally looking back at me from the mirror. And identity is a very big thing to me as far as like avatars. Like, if you hang out around me regularly, you'll find that like I'll switch into a different avatar or a meme avatar from time to time, but I don't spend an extended period of time outside of the avatar that is me because it feels weird.
That's very understandable.
And I've definitely enjoyed finding myself and other people on this platform. Like, everybody who is significant to me in my life, I've met through VRChat. And while the emotional trauma of going through the pandemic was heavy for a lot of people, I wouldn't trade the experiences I've had in here for anything. So for me, VRChat isn't just a game. It's been a journey of self-discovery. It has been a social learning experience. It's been a creative learning experience. And it's not just a game, it's a social platform. It's a conduit for meeting others and exploring yourself and your creativity, in our case, through the furry fandom. And when I first got into the furry fandom, like, I was like, I'm just going to be some goofball who follows, you know, furry artwork on Fur Affinity and things like that. I'm not going to be any necessarily big deal. I'm probably never going to meet all these popufurs, and like, here I am, you know, a decade later, I'm one of the popufurs, so to speak.
Cool. Ain't it crazy? One thing I have come to realize over conversations with a lot of people and in my own journey, VRChat, once you decide to put on the plastic potato or go through this wonderful universe we all experience, VRChat doesn't become a game. It's more of just like an experience. What you come in as is not the same thing you come out as. A lot of people, you'll come in, like, for example, one of our good friends, Raptor and I, was a mute, and we've never heard them speak for the longest time, but over time they found confidence in themselves. And by the time they finished years later, they're now speaking and they don't stop talking. So VRChat has become a very experimental or experience-driven thing for a lot of people.
Yeah, and it's different for everybody. I mean, it's a different story every time you hop in here, hanging out with friends, and who knows what worlds you might find. An interesting point of view is, I'm not sure if you've ever met Tao of the Sun, but he is definitely a very interesting person to have a conversation with. He's got this spectacular white lion avatar. Kind of looks like Aslan from Chronicles of Narnia. And he was talking one time about how a wonderful form of expression and communication VRChat is. Simply from the point of view that you meet a human in person, they meet you. You're used to the way humans look. Like, we're all humans IRL, obviously. But, like, in VRChat, it's different. I meet you, you meet me, and before we've ever exchanged a single word, we are seeing a special part of each other, our avatars, that wouldn't exist without the creative, inspiration that made that character come to life. So it's like a conversation about each other has occurred without even saying any words, and that's really special.
It is very special.
And I definitely relate to what you were saying about, the experience that, it can change you. Like, makes me think of a quote from Captain Sisko from Star Trek Deep Space Nine. It was in the closing episode. No matter where we go, no matter how far we travel, a part of us will always remain here.
Indeed. Yeah, that's a very powerful quote. Holy shit. It's very true, though. It's very true with a lot of things, especially with what you said, Aslan said. One of the things we ask a lot of people, and I ask particularly for that reason, is why do you choose the avatar you're in? Why the name? Because some people just will do a quick reference. Oh, this is just a character I've had for a while. Some people put a lot more thought into it. There's history behind why they chose the avatar, the name, and it's always interesting to see because you see a very huge perspective from that person and about that person, as you said, before you even exchange words, than to hear why. Feels very personal a lot of the time.
Like, my username, for example, isn't the Fursona name. Like, if you look at the labels on the doors here on the Fantasia, it says Captain Tarek Nightwind. That's the name of the wolf character. And I keep the name around, but when I picked a username for Fur Affinity back in the day, I was like, Wolf something wolf, because like I've always had a thing for wolves, so that much is obvious. Something cool, something unique. I'm even into Star Trek, Trek Wolf. I don't know, that sounds kind of boring. At the time, I was reading a fan-written Star Trek series called Star Trek Renaissance. Renaissance Wolf. And I'm like, I like the way that sounds. That's cool. And the fun part is it's unique enough that like nobody else tends to have that name anywhere. And I got to be more known by the username I had chosen than the actual Fursona name. So as far as Ren, short for Renaissance Wolf, I became Ren, so to speak. That I found the name through who I found myself to be. That everybody would start calling me Ren at conventions and stuff because like nobody could spell Renaissance. Are you serious? But
well, another
yeah,
question.
like
Why do you still use the name Renaissance Wolf now instead of going by the name of your character persona?
Because who I have found myself to be through all of the amazing people I've met, I'm Ren. And it's kind of like the I didn't necessarily choose the name Ren. It's more like the name was chosen by the people I surround myself with, because people started calling me Ren at conventions and stuff back in the day, and it kind of stuck. And I kind of enjoy it that way, that it wasn't necessarily me that chose the name, because Tarek Nightwind was the name I chose, but because my username was different, that's what people started calling me by, and like, I'm Ren, and I enjoy bringing people together, and I enjoy building Star Trek worlds. So.
Well, another question you ask you as well. Why did you choose the avatar you're in? Is there anything about it that means anything to you? Why do you still use it?
So initially, the Zeus from Cyberware avatars was my daily driver avatar for the longest time. And I'd kind of updated the textures, revamped it, upgraded it so it didn't look quite so dated. There was one particular day I saw somebody in the brand new public version of the Cleaner Wolf avatar. And I don't know what it was initially about that avatar, but I'm like, I need that. That looks closer to Ren than anything else I've seen so far, and I like the realism and the detail of it. And yeah, I just came across the avatar, and it was calling to me, and ended up doing a retexture. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with the term Therian, but I later found out that it very much was that particular side of me that was drawn to that avatar. So this is a better fit than my Zeus was.
Ah, okay. Pretty interesting. So is that one of the reasons why you still continue to use that avatar base?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's good to know.
E.
Oh.
My friend Ashcore did the weight painting because this uniform was originally on my Zeus avatar. My friend Ashcore recently did the weight painting to move this uniform over to the Cleaner Wolf, and it looks fantastic. They do really great work. Because like as far as Blender building models for worlds, that I can do. Blender as far as avatar stuff, I have no idea. It's a whole nother nightmare.
Whoa.
Well,
thank you for sharing that. It's much appreciated. I know I know it's can be a personal or weird question to ask, is why the avatar, why the name? But I feel it is good to know when you're trying to meet various people from VRChat, you can't necessarily just like speak with someone, where are you from, what do you do, in order to get to know them, because how you represent yourself is equally as personal.
Yeah. I mean, you look at VRChat, and there is so much art and expression and creativity, which is already a significant part of the furry fandom in general, and VRChat is just the latest medium for the fandom to spread its wings creatively, so to speak. So your avatar, what you look like, your species, it's all a artistic expression. It's an expression of self. It's an expression of identity. So they are important questions to ask, which is interesting you put it that way, because it's not like you can walk up to somebody on the street and be like, so I'm curious, why are you a human? I need to know.
Well,
it sounds weird in that context.
Well, even not just like human, it's like, why are you wearing those clothes today? Why the watch? Why are you wearing that frame of glasses?
Right.
That's an interesting phone. Why'd you choose iPhone? Those are just weird questions to generally ask people, but even in that context, it's still equally as important. You obviously chose that specific jacket because it's your favorite jacket. Why? There's a story behind that jacket, whatever that may be.
The story behind these glasses is I found these while looking for glasses models for a friend of mine. I came across these and I'm like, dude, these are damn near my IRL glasses. Like, same style, same like chrome rim around the bottom. Like, I need those. And then I download them and I realize there's 50,000 polygons and I'm like, I don't need those. But I later learned better what I was doing with Blender and went back and optimized them. So I use them on the avatars now because I can have glasses that look like my real ones. So it's that kind of like beyond the fourth wall, so to speak, but properly optimized so they don't take up a ton of polygons and people's CPUs.
Well, I would disappoint. I would say let's ask a couple questions, but we did answer those couple of questions. So I'll say, where can the audience find you if they wish to find you? And it's been an absolute honor to be able to speak with you, by the way. I still remember when I first found you, a couple years ago. So thank you for your time, by the way.
Yeah, no problem. If people want to find me, the best spot to find me is either through VRChat. I don't always approve random friend requests, but I usually do. But the best way to find me is I'm Renaissancewolf on Telegram. I'm also Renaissancewolf on Discord, so I'm easy to find on either platform. I'm regularly on both. If not, my Starship Worlds all have the little advertisement deal that has my contact info on it as well, but I'm easily reachable on both Discord and Telegram if anyone's interested in, either a world commission or a Starship World or just hanging out, getting to chat.
Well, thank you, Renaissancewolf, for your time, and all of that information will be right in the description below for you, the viewer. If you go down, if you're on YouTube and see the video description, right down there, click Show More, guest links. We'll have everything Renaissancewolf here for you to find, as well as the world link if you wish to come click it and save it in your profile. All one easy place, as well as other fun links. It's usually a fun place. If you're on Spotify, we didn't forget you either. It's over in the episode description. Same place, same layout, same thing. There's the world with links and who made the world, as well as where you can find it, as well as the guest links. And this is the point where you kind of reach out with you, the audience member. But I have an interesting question. What is an important show to you from when you were a kid? For me, one of mine that sticks with me, ironically, is going to be Star Trek for me, because I would watch my dad, but also a movie series, which is Godzilla, for the same reason. I'd sit and watch all of that with my dad. I'd see all of it all the time. And whenever I see them, I get flashback to when I was like 9 eating ramen with my dad on the couch. So it's important to me for that reason only. And the closing bit, a very Raptor-esque, can't really poke fun at him here or there, though, but I will say this is a little bit of a advice thing. Sometimes in life, you want to go reach the end goal faster than you than you're capable of getting there. So slow down, smell the roses, enjoy the trip, because sometimes the trip is just as important as the end goal, because the journey is what makes you to get there. Without that journey, the end goal is just a place. It means nothing. So enjoy the trip. See you later, folks.
I wonder if you can ride the train and go inside the fucking over there. That'd be cool.
That would be cool. How big
It
that wall is.
Goes in there and goes around. Why? And it goes around.
Oh, it does. Holy shit.
Fuck yeah, it goes fucking around. I don't know where it goes. Like I said, I just got here. I don't know where everything is.
Huh.
We have to check this place out.
Definitely, we're gonna have to.
There's another one. There's another one I got to show you that It's called the. Yeah, hold on. Another one is called the Cozy Woods. That one's cool.
Oh, okay. We're definitely gonna have to check that out too. There's a bunch we're gonna have to check out.
Yeah, there's some new ones in.